What is an RRSP meltdown? How does it work? How does it save you taxes? And why is it such an important piece of your retirement plan? And if you don't have the RRSP meltdown built into your retirement and income plan, you're paying too much in taxes. When we build out financial plans for clients, there's a few main parts that we do. We get the basic data into the information. Again, we use snap projections, which I'm going to show here in a minute. Then we look at CPP timing, and then we build in the RRSP meltdown. And you'll see here, I'm just going to do a very basic example. I have a 66-year-old couple. They have a fair amount of savings, about $270,000, $280,000 each of RRSP, and about $100,000 of TFSA. So a decent amount of savings, but they're not multimillionaires, and they're already a bit later into retirement. They're 66. They're not 58 or 60 or 61, like a lot of you looking to retire nowadays. The younger you start this process, the more tax savings there's going to be. So I kind of wanted to use more of a conservative approach to this so that the rest of you that are younger can say, well, if these people can save this much, how much can I save? And again, everybody's situation is different, but I'll say this. I've never done a plan where we do the RRSP meltdown and it doesn't save a lot of taxes. It gives better strategy, which I'll cover here in a second, but it reduces the taxes as well, which again, we'll break down here in the software. So again, Mr. and Mrs. YouTube here, they have RRSPs 283,000, TFSA 103. Mrs. YouTube, we left at the exact same thing. So no change there. If we go into their planning pages here, we've decided already, again, in the process, we've talked to them and said, look, delaying CPP to 70 gave you a financial benefit. They're okay doing that. But beyond that, they just kind of do their own thing. And this is a typical plan that we see someone that's in retirement drawing income. Is they just kind of take a minimum amount out of that RIF, right? A lot of people look at what's the minimum out of my RIF account I have to take, and they take that out. So you can see here, Mr. YouTube taking the minimum RIF, a bit of OAS in there, and any additional income he needs, he's taking out of the tax-free savings account, because in his mind, it's, I can take tax-free, get that money on a tax-free basis, not pay the tax, and slowly take a bit of both out and kind of average out my tax rate a bit better. And Mr. YouTube and Mrs. YouTube, again, the same process there, same numbers. I've kept it as simple as possible for all of you. So that's the process. You can see here on the right-hand side, they're both paying a very low marginal and effective tax rate here. So less than 2% on an average tax rate. So this plan looks great, right? I'm paying less than 2%. It jumps up a little bit later once CPP starts. If I go to the combined income tab, they're running at $72,000. This is adjusted for inflation and after tax, all the way down to age 90. And they're left with about $40,000 left in the RSP at age 90, which of course, if they pass away at the same time, would be taxable in year of death. If one passed away, it could roll over to the others depending on who owned that. So that's what that looks like, a great plan. Like if you looked at this from the surface, you'd say, hey, this isn't too bad. Now, a couple issues is you can see their TFSA accounts. This is a combined view on their TFSAs, 181, 156. They're grinding down their TFSAs fairly quickly. And by the time they're 80, they have no TFSAs left, which means that if they had a big bill in their 80s, they need a new roof or something like that, new car, where are they getting that money from? Well, it's going to have to come from their RIF at that point, which would be taxable income. So this is one of the issues we see with this. The other thing is, if I click on total tax, now this is the total amount of tax that they're going to pay through retirement. And you can see this number, and we'll highlight this number as we move forward here because I want to compare it to an RSP meltdown scenario. You can see it's $253,000 of total tax, 107 federal, 146 provincial. So just over $250,000 of tax. Now, if we jump into the exact same scenario here, again, we've changed nothing other than gone in and done a bit of work on the drawdown of the accounts. And this is an area that the majority of you watching our videos are missing on. And so you can see here, $72,000, the same after-tax income. If I scroll down, the total assets that are left are $5,000 left, $35,000, but they're in a TFSA account. So they're going to be tax-free. So in essence, the net amount is going to be a little bit more probably. As we jump in, you can see the TFSA account. It's almost the opposite of the other plan in that the TFSA goes from 212 to 217 to 220. It's actually growing, and it continues to grow until about age 83. And they have over $300,000 in there, and then it's melted down from there. much more flexible. If they need a lump sum of money, there's always going to be that bucket right through retirement. You can see the RIF account. It's drawn down by about age 83, 84. So again, it's kind of a reverse process to what most of you are doing. And when you say, Adam, how do you know that most of us are doing? A, there's been a lot of research done on this. And B, we see it every single day come into our office, and that's why people hire us to build out their financial plans. Now, what does the RRSP Meltdown look like? Now, before I show the numbers, I just want to jump in. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there on the RRSP Meltdown. There's different strategies and a lot of complicated processes to it. I'll be honest, we keep it as simple as possible, and I would put our plans up against any other advisor out there that has their own process to the RRSP. What you want to do when you hit retirement is you want to keep things simple. You want to put as much money back in your pocket after tax and pay as little tax as possible. As far as the RRSP Meltdown goes for us, it's how do we draw out your RRSP or your RIF account as tax efficiently as possible, as quickly and tax efficiently as possible. So what that means is we want to draw it down, but we want to be conscious of your tax situation, your income needs, all of that along the way. So when we look at Mr. and Mrs. YouTube, you can see here that Mr. YouTube is going to start drawing out $30,000 a year. Once his CPP starts, we're going to scale it back to about $20,000 a year. Now you can see the TFSA, a nominal amount. Is pretty much just a complement. And I always call the TFSA, or if you have a non-reg, it would be kind of first in line, as your lever account. If you need a little bit more, pull it from there. If you don't, leave it in or put more money back into there. But you can see the RRSP gets drawn out at $20,000 all the way down. And again, it's gone by age 84. It's a great strategy to have. Now, one might say, well, Adam, you're paying more tax. Like the effect of your average tax rate is higher earlier on, which is absolutely true. It's a bit higher, not a whole lot, like the amount of tax isn't a whole lot higher. And then it drops off the cliff later, which is reverse. Like if someone said that to me, I'd say, well, no, let's pay less tax now, more later. We can save more money, this and that. But the money movement doesn't work that way. And I can tell you again and again and again, we do this every day. Many of us in our office here that are planners that are working with you do this day in and day out, and this process works. It works to put more money back in your pocket. It creates more flexibility. Again, that TFSA account is so important in retirement. It creates so much flexibility and allows you to grab that tax-free income when you need it. Not if you need it, when you need it. You will need a new car, a new roof, some sort of big expense. It might even be a travel expense. You will have that, so make sure you plan for it. At age 90, when these clients pass away, there's about the same amount of money. If I go to age, for a lot of you that are arguing, 87, 88 is life expectancy. Let's go to age 87. There's $168,000 in there, and it's all tax-free money. And we'll go back to the other plan and look at that. But what I want to look at first is how much tax do they pay here? If you remember, the other plan was $253,000. If I click on this total tax bill, they're paying total tax of $188,000. So close to about $65,000 of taxes saved. And again, this is a very conservative plan. So clients always ask, like, am I going to get tax savings from a financial plan with you? What's the process? How does this work? What I would consider, yes, they have a fair amount of assets, $800,000, don't get me wrong. But as far as like they're a bit older, there's not a lot of time to do the RRSP Meltdown and tax strategy. It's a pretty basic conservative plan as far as that goes. Typically savings are much more, but you can see even in this plan, $65,000 of tax savings, plus much more flexibility with that tax-free savings account. So again, if we go back down to age 87, it was $168,000. Let's take a look at the other plan. And I'm doing this blindly, I don't know what it looks like. So jumping over to the other plan, at age 87, you have $218,000. Again, it's all in RIF, so it's all gonna be taxable. If both people die that year, it's all taxable. And that amount of income, you're gonna be taxed at about 40%, depending on what province or territory you're in. It's about a 40% tax rate, which would make it lower than that 168. And again, much more tax and all that kind of stuff. So again, not as great of a plan. So again, this is one piece of many aspects of building out a retirement plan, but I wanted to break it down for you. This is kind of the process we go through and looking at, and again, if you're younger, if you have a lot of assets, all these things play bigger factors in the RRSP Meltdown. Like if you have, RIF account and LIF account and, maybe you have a pension plans coming in and you got TFSA and non-reg, and there's a lot of moving parts. Again, this was a simple scenario. Most of you are much more complicated. So make sure your retirement plan has the RRSP Meltdown and that tax integration, that tax planning into it all. And if it doesn't, you need to talk to your financial planner to get that done. If you don't have a financial planner, if you're a DIY investor, reach out to our office. We do offer fee-for-service planning. Now, what's important is the plan doesn't end here. The RRSP Meltdown is the tax savings. The next step that we look at is a laddered income, that go-go, slow-go, no-go phase of retirement. So in this plan, we take the $72,000 and ladder it out a little bit. So in the next video, in a few days from now, we're gonna release, we'll talk about that go-go, slow-go, no-go phase of retirement. I'll show you this case scenario, how it works into that laddered income strategy, and the importance of it and why we do it.